6 seasons have come and gone with the AMGSE. Alterations have been seen in the classes in previous seasons that have changed the dynamic of the racing, and yet the same character seems to follow this series no matter what combination of cars they use. Races that are unpredictable, dramatic, and exciting are a guarantee no matter how they shuffle the cards. And yet, Season 7 sees perhaps one of the most drastic shifts in car classes the series has seen yet. With LMP cars joining the fray and the GTD cars bidding farewell, it's about to get that much more frantic out on track. We'll see who adapts best to the changing times as we get ready to watch the opening round of the Autobahn Motorcar Group's Sportscar Challenge. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth covering the LMP1 and LMP2 classes is Bill Soups On. Keeping us up on the GTE class is Taylor Burris. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Taylor, it seems like a matter of tradition for sports car series to open things up here at Daytona. Tell us about the track.
Indeed it is. Good evening all, and welcome to the World Center of Racing Daytona International Speedway. Located in my old hometown of Daytona Beach, Florida, USA, this 12-turn, 3.5-mile or 5.72-kilometer track was the idea of founder of NASCAR, Bill France Sr., after many years was racing on the beaches and street courses of Daytona Beach. Opened in 1959, sports car racing made their debut here in 1962 with a 3-hour race that was won by one of the greatest drivers ever, Dan Gurney. In 1966, however, it was switched to the famous 24-hour format, to where Ken Miles and Lloyd Ruby in a Ford Mach 2 took home the checkered flag. To let you, the fans, see what these drivers are going to be going through tonight, let's take you on a Global Sim Racing lap guide in the Ford GT.
All right, we've got Taylor Burris in the GSRC 4 GT, so let's do a lap around Daytona. Right away, you've got the difficult braking for turn 1 to tackle. The transition off of the banking can often unsettle the car, plus you're turning and braking most of the way into the corner. Despite all this, it's still one of the most popular places to pass on the lap. As we weave through the little chicane, bring the car back to the left and you'll be braking for the International Horseshoe. You might sometimes see passes into here when the opportunity presents itself. There's a little access road off to the left of the exit too, which because it's paved, it's all fair game to use when getting the power down. We'll drift it back across, and in these GTE cars, the kink is easily flat out. But the best racing line is to hug the car to the left side to give yourself a nice entry into the Western Horseshoe. The tricky thing here is the way the corner tightens in the middle. It makes hitting the apex a bit of a pain. Turn 6, which will be the last one of the infield section, is probably one of the most important of the lap. Failing to get a good exit here will cost you a bunch of time on the oval portion. Plus, you'll want to protect yourself from attack by preventing the car behind you from getting as much of a slipstream as possible. Jumping ahead to the bus stop, it's going to be tempting to make an overtake into here, but any side-by-side racing is terribly risky and often doesn't end well. Once again, because we'll be flat out for a while, getting on the throttle smoothly and early will pay big dividends. And just like before, draft battles are probably going to be playing out all day. But as we bring it to the line at the tri-oval, you've now hopefully finished a lap around Daytona. There you see during the day what it looks like around here, but obviously racing under the lights for our first round of the season, which always tends to put on some beautiful visuals. Now, as we let the last of qualifying take place, let's jump over to Bill for another tradition here in the AMGSC, and that's for Bill to fill us in on the points.
Yeah, what we're going to try to do is take care of 2 articles of business here. We're going to review what happened last season and then see how that applies to what's coming up. We'll start by looking at what is called the prototype standings. Now, this car is still going to be around, but it's not going to be the fastest car anymore as they bring in the LMP1 class. But you can see there that Robert Tinsley won this one. Now, Tinsley, Andra, Gralty, and Ulmer, along with most of the other guys, are going to move up and race in the LMP1s. The only driver that's going to stay in the prototypes is Alex Ellis, and Ellis ended up winning the last 3 rounds last time in that prototype car, so look for him to be really good in that class. Let's go down now and look at what was called last season the GTLMs. This is going to be the what they're going to call the GT GTE class now. And that has Jeffrey Ohms. He's going to be back racing in that one again. There's McGarvey. Billy Smith is not going to be in this group. He's going to go up and race in the prototypes as well. Then we go to the class, the GTD standings. And this one just had a great championship between Cervetic and Bradley Haley. If my memory serves right, Cervetic's going to go all the way up and race in the LMP1s, if I remember right. Haley's going to go up and race in the LMP2s. You can see the McGarvey's in there. Santana and Rosenbaum, a pair of amateurs as they battle that one out. Finally, we'll look at one last thing. We're going to learn more about the teams as the silly season's going on. People are shuffling around. And this is cool because this series has an iRacing cap where the teams, they can't just fill up on top-tier drivers. They have to make sure everybody fits. But look at this. SRN Motorsports with Gralty, Huff, and McGarvey. Neither one of those drivers finished any higher than third in any of the classes. But they were a true team, and they just crushed the competition. You can see the two Autobahn West teams there, TMC Racing, the Racing and Carbon, going fourth and fifth. So it's going to be exciting. Last season put on a great round of points. Went all the way down to the end. I think we're going to have another one this time, Joe.
Yeah, season 6 was, I would consider it something of a classic for this series. Real quickly, let's familiarize you with what's happening in today's race and go through the details. We are in season 7 and 14 rounds this season. They will get 2 drop weeks, so just like before, they are able to have a few errors through the season and maybe come out less unscathed or less scathed. But today's race endurance for these guys, for the format, 90 minutes. Usually they're 60-minute races for most of the rounds that you'll see, a little bit longer today. The setups on all 3 classes are open, but they have limited the fuel, so you should expect to see 2 pit stops today during this race. The incident cap is at 36. And a big one, this will make you happy, Bill, makes me happy as well. They've taken away the free repair. So
yes, indeed.
You break it, you bought it. Now, speaking of that, and we mentioned that this tends to be a bit of a frantic series, so you got to come in at least knowing what you need to do to win. And Taylor, I understand you've done a little bit of research on what the keys to the race are today.
Yes, indeed. One of the biggest things that drivers in both P1 and the P2 class is going to need to learn is patience, especially when having to deal with the lap traffic of the GTEs and the other slower P2 cars. It's important that they keep a cool head and focus on making clean passes, especially through the infield part of the track. Another point is that drafting will be a very huge point to see for these cars, no matter what field of cars they're running, whether it be LMP1, 2, or the GTE cars. And for our GTE drivers, they're going to need to keep their eyes up and alert at all times, knowing that they're going to have to deal with faster cars around them, and also, most importantly, focus on what's in front of them on the track. So these guys are going to have a lot of hands to deal with and a lot of difficulties to watch for these 90-minute races.
Thanks for that, Taylor, as we watch the last chance qualifying happen out on track. Now, if you're wondering what the last chance qualifying is, this series separates each class into their own 15-minute qualifying, but drivers that for whatever reason cannot make their allotted time for the qualifying are allowed to come out here at the very end in these last 15 minutes, but they cannot have set a qualifying time at any other time during the qualifying. They can't take the car out on track. This can be used strategically. However, there's a downside to it. You'd think, oh, well, fewer cars out at the end, right? Well, it's mixed class qualifying. So even though there's fewer cars, the chances of getting interrupted by a different class getting in your way are incredibly raised. Right now, looking at Jimbo Pfeiffer running out there. Looks like he is 15th in class. But Bill, we've talked a lot about the changes. Honestly, the biggest one with one of your classes, those LMP1s that I'm kind of curious to watch and also hear the drivers talk about as the season goes on. The LMP1s are probably some of the most complicated cars the iRacing surface has ever seen. I'm curious who is going to adapt to that.
I think a lot of this is going to be, it's going to be now a little less on the driver, although the driver's still going to have a lot to do with it, and a lot on the engineers as they figure this out. And there's so many big names coming into it. Also, we forgot to mention when we talked about the drivers that are racing, how about some names from the past? Jason Deep Freeze DeVries is back. Daniel Benfield, is up here racing in these guys. But Joe, I think another thing that's going to be on, talk about learning curves, I think it's going to be in the P2 class. A lot of those drivers, we got guys like Billy Smith. We've never seen him in the prototype before. Jimmy Hume, Gerard is back doing in that one, McGarvey. So I think it's going to be a learning curve for a lot of these drivers that get used to a different environment.
Yeah, that's for sure. Just about 5 minutes left here in qualifying, then we'll go through your starting grid. It has shuffled things up, the changes they've made, but that's a good thing in this series is we like to have some variety out there. Even though, like I said, it is usually unpredictable, but you know, you got to throw something new in there every once in a while. Alex Simonik, one of the ones that we were waiting to get his first win, and I believe he did get his first win last season, now running for the Bushfink team. Glad to see them have a presence out here today. I know Bill's not happy about that.
They're everywhere.
And 54 cars out there. Oh, boy. Traffic, a little bit less of a problem at this track typically, Taylor, but even with 54 cars, I think it's going to be a lot to handle.
It is most certainly going to be a lot to handle. I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing how these GTE cars are able to handle pretty much staying out of the way of these LMP cars, but yet still racing hard against each other in their classes.
Right on board with last season's champion, Jeffrey Ooms. Mantra back to try and get another one under his belt. Let's see what he can do as he works with his teammate of Alex Simonik. Now, granted, I know it says they are in the same class. You might see on your screen that they are independent drivers. Even though they are teammates outside of this series, in this series, they are not scoring points together. David Sockrider has returned, seeing him out there trying to put lap times in the LMP2. Go ahead, Bill.
Honestly, Daytona, not the worst place to start a season, especially with a big field like this. Everybody knows Daytona, and let's be honest, maybe not the most technical of tracks to have to deal with.
Yeah, that's for sure. Although I would argue that there's some relatively tricky spots that can catch a driver out. Turn one, of course. Yeah. Incredibly tough for braking, Bill.
Yeah, but at least we're not. At least we're not at Brands Hatch or Bathurst.
Yeah. Yeah, that would see a completely different race. That's for sure. Clock still ticking down here as the last of the drivers try to get their times in. Looking through to see who else is out on track that might be worth giving a watch. Dennis Savretic, one of those that has changed what class he was in.
Yep.
Moved up to the LMP1s, and I think he's made a good jump because starting in fourth, especially among the names that you listed there, Bill, that's not bad.
Yeah, boy, this top class is just stacked. I feel sorry for Mark Wilson and Dino Topic down there and Jesse Lyon. It's going to be... I started looking above them in the top 8. David Williams, Daniel Gralti, John Omer, Syandra, Mike Young is fast, Savretic, Tinsey, DeVries, Bank. Oh, man.
Whew. That is going to be fun. Now, Taylor, what about in these GTE cars? I know you've got quite a bit of experience running those machines, and that's the biggest field that we've got out there by some margin. So, I mean, what would your approach be going into this, knowing that you've got a lot of cars around you as well as the other two classes?
Well, the biggest thing to keep in mind as far as for these GTE drivers is that these LMP cars will be coming at you in about 5 to 7 laps once they take the green flag. So in those 5 to 7 laps before those cars start coming in, I would make sure to be racing as hard as I can to get my car set up in a good position and be able to make sure I'm able to move out of these LMP cars, but still have a good, decent track position to where I'm just slowly but progressively working my way up to the field. But those first 5 to 7 laps will be very key in these drivers to make sure they get as much position as they can before the LMP cars start showing up.
And that's when the two storms come together, I suppose you could say. A little bit of bookkeeping here before we get to green. Drivers, you, our viewers should know, are not allowed to overtake or use to gain advantage any of the racing surface below the double yellow line in NASCAR 1 and 2 and NASCAR 3 and 4. Now, they can use it in the tri-oval section. So basically, once they get off of the high banking, when you get down to the pit entry, they're allowed to go below that double yellow line. But otherwise, elsewhere on the track, you cannot use it, except for emergency situations.
Follow up on a little manufacturer's battle here. Looks like Taylor's going to get the only one that has a decent manufacturer, with the Ferraris and Fords being both fairly well represented down there in the GTEs. In the LMP1s, it's all Porsche.
Drivers now get the checkered flag, so anybody who crosses the line is going to have their qualifying finish. So if you're on a hot lap, you can complete it. But as we watch Danny Kane try to work his 3:14 around of NASCAR 2, looks like he should be able to get there in time with about a minute 40 left. One other thing that we should note, if you followed in previous seasons and know how we had the amateur and pro championships in each of the classes, well, that's changed, and it is now down to the GTE cars that only have a pro and AM championship, just to try to encourage some of the AM drivers, lower iRating drivers, down into those easier to handle cars, I guess we could say. Just about a minute 18 left.
The LMP1 guys are a little snobby, then, is what you're saying, right?
You know, I think they have right to be. If they can be fast up in those cars, then yeah, hats off to them. Jimbo Pfeiffer comes around to complete his lap, also on the back stretch at the moment. Let's see, who else is actually still left? Danny Kane. Yeah, Danny Kane, the last one.
Good to see Danny back racing with us.
Exactly. And he's going to abandon the lap anyway. So that'll complete our field. Let's go through our starting order. Daniel Benefield is going to be on the pole, with Jason DeVries going to be starting in second position. Row 2 will be Dennis Savretic in third, with Robert Tinsey starting in fourth. Mike Young will be P5 at the drop of the green, and Cy Andra, he challenged Tinsey all the way to the end last season. Let's see what he can do this time. He'll have some work to do starting 6. John Ulmer, let's see if the cheese stays on the pizza. He's starting 7th today. Daniel Gralty waiting for his first win in the series. He starts in P8. David Williams returns once again to start 9th, with Jesse Lyon starting in 10th and Dino Topic starting 11th. Mark Wilson will be P12 when the race starts. Let's go to Bill with the LMP2s.
Just a little bit bigger field than that is, but that's the way it should be. Jason Gerard on the pole. He's going to be inside of Billy Smith. Scott McGarvey and Jimmy Hume are going to fill up the second row. Ross Booth and Mark Schindel go 5th and 6th. Jason Lundy, good to see the Puffin driver coming over from Championship Motorsports joining us over here. He's going to be next to Danny Kane, Kevin O'Keefe, and Alan Haysbeck. Haysbeck always fast around there in 9th. Then it's going to be Sheldon Rosenbaum, Sean Reese, Carter Kundinger, Chris Pence, and David Sockrider round out that field. Taylor?
Starting on the pole position for the GTE class, it will be Alex Simonix, followed by Jeffrey Ohms, and then Paul Darling in the 3rd position in class. Stephen McGarvey will be starting in the 19th position overall, followed by Alex Ellett in 20th position. Bradley Haley will start in the 21st position, followed by John Paquin in 22nd. Paul Lindsay will start in 23rd overall, followed by Giuliano Romagnola in the 24th position. In 25th is Ryan Huff, followed by Kevin Santana in 26th. Leif Peterson will start 27th, followed by Dean Mull in 28th overall. Jimbo Pfeiffer will start in 29th, followed by Scott Corbin rounding out your top 30.
Dave Hill will start in 31st, and Chandler Rubeck will be 32nd behind him. Brandon Guaracia will be 33rd, and he's followed by Patrick Fleming in the 34th spot. Then in 35th, it'll be Shane Hunter with Samuel Scott with him on that row, and 36th, Emmanuel Ejere in 37th, and Mark Kudrowski in 38th. Robert Sklanka will be 39th. DB Bowman will be 40th. The last 2 cars in the field will be Christopher Sherburne and Matt Owens. There is your starting grid for round 1 of season 7 and the AMGSC.
Just to correct myself, in that GTE class, there are actually 3 cars, and they're all pretty well represented, of course, as the Porsches down there as well, with the Ferrari and the Ford.
And if you're looking at that, noting that the LMP2 cars are up at the front, I think they had a bit of an error. So I think they're going to try and get that fixed, hopefully, before they get to the green flag, because the LMP2s are starting in the back, and that's not the correct order.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, really. See how quickly they can get this sorted out.
Well, that's going to be hard to figure out. I think they're going to have to
half
come
a
around.
lap.
Yeah, they're going to have to do this under green flag and just see if they can organize it that way, because otherwise people will start picking up penalties.
Well, right now the LMP2s are holding back a little bit away from there. So let's see, where are the LMP1s? So they still haven't come up. So yeah, they're... Okay. Well, we'll see how this all plays out.
So we'll go to Taylor after we call the starts for the LMPM ones.
I suppose so. They work their way up to the line. And I'm just as curious as everybody else how exactly they're going to do this. Green flag flies here in round one, and I think they're not going. I think they're going to wait patiently. So I think they are doing an extra pace lap. They'll give us
Stop the clock.
Yeah, a little bit more time.
This could have fuel strategy ramifications here. This is a lap of yellow, and we talked about that the P1 cars are going to be close. It's going to be a two-stop, maybe a two-stop and a splash. Well, this could change up some people's calculations.
So hopefully we should see the LMP1s working through, and then we'll get a proper exciting start being called. If you were watching closely, you might have seen that the grid at the start looked a little screwed up as well. So that's why it looked a little odd. Taylor, does this hurt your nerves when you start, or you're supposed to start, and the race doesn't go when you think it will, or does it give you maybe a bit of a relief?
In my sense, it gives me a bit of a relief. It gives me a chance to just calm down, make sure all of my, everything's set up on my steering wheel, make sure my communications are all set, connections all set. So it's really important, actually a nice little breather just to collect your thoughts, get ready for the green flag. So this is going to be quite exciting.
Pretty amazing that they were able to look like they were doing a good job of getting this sorted out. Sometimes trying to organize iRacers like herding cats, they just don't really listen to you, but these guys did a good job, and I think they got it figured out.
Well, this is absolutely a credit to the series, that how organized they are, that and adaptable, that something like this would happen, and they were immediately on it, figured out how to deal with it, and everybody seems to be listening. So credit to everybody out there for making do of what is an incredibly confusing situation. As you can see, they now have the LMP1 cars out in the front. So they are in order, and they're just running at pace speed. If you're just joining us here because of a mix-up in the way that this session was set up, so that they can get a proper start. This will shorten the race slightly, maybe by about 2 laps, I would say.
Mike Young is in the pits. I think he was planning to start from pit lane. He's got to go out and run a lap now before... In fact, he's going right now. He realized, I can't start from pit lane if you guys are going to do the first lap under green there. So he's out, going to go around.
All right, out of the bus stop they come into NASCAR 3 and 4. And again, it is Daniel Benefield up at the top, ahead of Deep Freeze DeVries. It's going to be leading the way to what will now be the official green. And we'll go racing for a little less than 90 minutes out here today at Daytona International Speedway. He's got to wait for the line just after the pit entry before he's able to go. That is the official start-finish line, or the starting zone that they've determined. Now he's able to go when he wants. He goes immediately. Daniel Benefield on the gas as we get a single-file start. Jumps Jason DeVries by a little bit, getting himself some breathing room but otherwise very clean through this relatively small pack. Let's go back to the LMP2s.
Jason Girard leading the single file start, and he's holding them back a little bit. He's got a big gap to the P1 cars. Now he's on the gas. Let's follow him down into the first corner. It's going to be Girard, Billy Smith right behind him. They go single file in, very clean. Too wide, a little farther back. Let's go to Taylor.
And they are off. Alex Simonix, followed by Jeffrey Ohms, down into turn 1. The 2 Porsches pulling away, followed by Paul Darling in the Ferrari. And then Stephen McGarvey, your Ford. Looks like Alex Ellis is going to try to look to the outside into turn 1, but a very clean start for the GTE field.
Indeed, all of the 3 classes had a very good start. Didn't see much in the way of crazy incidents or wild dives. Good to see, since they're going to get plenty of action as the race goes on. Already, our leaders in the LMP1s working their way through the bus stop and out. It looks like Benefield still leading DeVries, leading Savretic, ahead of Tinsey.
Boy, and you know what? The big gap between the P1s and the P2s at the start, that means that the P1 guys are going to be coming up on lap traffic really fast, as the P2s are just going through the bus stop now.
And our LMP1s are already into the infield. In fact, they've caught some traffic in the form of Mark Kadrowski and Scott Corbin, I believe. These must be cars that also started from the pit lane. Not in a good place either. The infield, possibly the hardest place to try and get by them. So far, the leaders dealing with it relatively well.
Oh, we got a big name that's off. Maybe get a replay of this one. Alan Haseback, car number 31. Boy, he came into corner number 1, almost got into the back of some traffic. I thought he was going into the wall. He got it straightened out. This one was scary.
Yeah, down in turn 1. We're going to take a look at the replay.
They were going too wide. You can see how hot he brought it in there. Then takes a really wide, gets a roller, but he loses a ton of spots.
And that's why they have all that paved runoff on the outside.
Yeah. Been very clean so far.
Really has been. Right now, Girard still leading Smith in that LMP2 class. Scott McGarvey, who's been a bit of a talent coming to the fore, who was in the middle class last time, but stays in the middle class, just in a different car, currently sitting in a podium position. We had one of our P1 cars off. That was Jesse Lyon, and that unfortunately caused another incident as Mark Kadrowski had a bit of a spin trying to avoid him. Let's take a look at that replay. Just a little bit offline. Oh, and actually contact involved in there. Didn't quite see who that was with. Might have been Ulmer. There you saw at the very end of it, that was Kadrowski, unfortunately, spinning his way into the pit exit wall. Down in the GTE, sounds like we got some action up at the top of the field, Taylor.
Yes, we do. Between Alex Ellis and Stephen McGarvey, they're going side by side into turn 1. Alex Ellis has the inside line, a little contact almost between McGarvey as he washes up wide. Ellis give that P4 position to him, just holding his line now and pulls away from McGarvey. Excellent pass down into turn 1.
Oh, they fool around too much. They've got John Paquin just behind them. Bradley Haley as well, 2 incredibly fast drivers ready to take as many spots as they can. Meanwhile, up at the top, you can see Daniel Benefield just set the fastest lap of the race. He is not looking to let Jason catch him at all. So we jump up to our leaders.
You were talking about Ellis there back there in the GTEs. Remember, he won 3 races in the row to close out the season in the prototypes for season 6. So, yeah, he's somebody to watch for sure.
Yeah, Alex Ellis, a coach for some Porsche teams up in Canada. This guy knows how to drive these Porsches, so actually just got done with a GT4 race last weekend, so he is really hot in these Porsches, so it's going to be fun to watch him tonight here at Daytona.
Riding on board with Benefield as he weaves his way through the traffic. All the other cars following him through. De Vries, Savretic, Andra. So far, no real dramas. For an Autobahn race, this has been a sort of tepid start, I would say, Bill.
Well, they knew we had a new director, and they didn't want to work Sean Ambrose too hard here. You know what's interesting? If we can go to P11 overall, Jason Gerard, the leader of the P2s, he's not able to get away from Billy Smith. We've seen Billy Smith work his way up. Remember, Joe, we saw him, what a wide exit back onto the oval from Smith. Saw him start where he was so dominant in the caddy so many seasons ago, then he moved up. Now he's up one more car.
Changes yet again. He had trouble trying to get those wins. He did snag a few over the years. But let's see how he fares in the prototypes, which, like you said at the start, we have not seen him run in yet. Thus far, he's been giving Gerard a run for his money. And we know from last season that Gerard is no slouch, a previous winner in this car back when it was the fastest in the group.
Smith in second. Scott McGarvey also coming up into the open hood car here, open cockpit car for McGarvey. Let's look at Jimmy Hulme in 15th. This is a good battle. Hulme, Smith. Oh my goodness, and the yellow car is that Schindel. This is a battle there, you see. On the outside, the pass by Hulme, I think. Yes.
Nicely done.
Oh, we got Alex Ellis off in the bus stop. He's able to recover, though, still, but going to lose a lot of position. He just got really loose going down into the chicanes, and that gives the position back to McGarvey. So he is dropping like a rock now at the moment.
That was kicked off when he and Stephen McGarvey went side by side. Looks like we do have a replay. There was a train of cars coming up behind them. This is one of those places you really don't want to be side by side into.
No, 4 cars pretty much under a blanket and off into the... Looks like he hit the curb going off, and then you just send him right off. Safely not hitting the wall, but getting back on track. So good driving by Alex.
So come back live, and actually... McGarvey very much in the thick of it. He's in a battle with Paquin, and they've got LMP1 cars coming through. Syandra has to squeeze on by. Robert Tinsey is coming up to them. John Ulmer, his old rival from seasons before. Oh, are they going to split them on either side? Oh, they come together!
That's one of the dangers with that. Looks like Paquin, and we've got some more cars spin.
Oh, they continue to spin.
Pfeiffer involved in that. Looks like Peterson as well. And Paul Lindsay. Some big names. Let's take a look at that one more time. All started when the LMP1 cars were having to try and overtake as a battle in the GTEs was going on. Poor John Ulmer was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, from watching that incident, it looked like Paquin tried to follow the LMP cars as they were going to get by McGarvey, and that hole just closed way too quickly as McGarvey tried to shut the door on Paquin. So it was just a lot of racing incidents going on in that whole situation.
And then the second incident was Leif Peterson spinning himself, seeing the action happen in front of him. We'll come back live as we're having a little bit of difficulty finding that one.
Tell you what, though, the top 3 between Ohms, Simonik, and Darling, as Ohms is now the new leader in the GTE class, has been just bumper to nose to tail throughout the whole race. It looks like Ohms gets a little tight. As now LMP1 cars are now zooming through to get by the front runners in the GTE class. And man, Ohms is just holding off Simonik really well. Darling, though, going to look to the inside as it goes to the west. As Ohms is loose and collects his team, or his former teammate, Simonik. Looks like Ohms got loose going into the western horseshoe. He's got a little bit of wing damage, so he's going to have to make a trip to pit road here momentarily.
We'll get another look at that. This is a little bit more like the AMG SC that we're familiar with. So we try to pull that one up. Looks like we just missed it. That was back in the Western Horseshoe. Here we go. Well, very similar to what we saw with the other incident. Oh, and I think, that
Looks like
that was the International Horse.
Yep, so we're going, that's the International Horseshoe, so we're almost there. He's getting ready to come off.
No, that was the Western Horseshoe. Excuse us. Looks like we didn't get that one.
So as Paul Darling now is the new leader in the GTE class, Alex decided to come down pit road also. He had a little bit of nose damage from making contact with his teammate, and that moves also Giuliano Romagnolo up to the P3 class, Alex Ellis in 4, followed by Bradley Haley, your top 5 in the GTE class, and pretty much the entire GTE field is now 1 lap down.
Darling having a bit of a connection issue potentially here. Hence why he's blinking. We jump back up to Jason DeVries, who has been holding in the second position since the drop of the green. He's tried to chase down Benefield, but to no success quite yet. Good news is he has pulled away from the car behind Savretic, rounding out the podium, each of them pretty much equidistant apart.
Can't be fooled by this pace either, because we're still not quite sure what the pit strategy is for the P1s up here, whether they have to conserve to do this on a 2-stop, or whether they can race full out now that they had that first lap under caution.
Oh, we got a pass happening between Tinsley and Andra. Andra in 4th, trying to go around the outside of turn 1. Doesn't quite make it go off. He's going to give another go down in the International Horseshoe. Robert Tinsley covering him off on the inside and successfully fends off last season's rival for now, but clearly the number 18 is on the move.
Yeah, Cy was having a little connection problem as well, but remember, those guys raced in the prototype in the fastest cars. They're going to stay in the fastest car right now. You can see that blinking going on there from Andra as he chases the red car of Tinsley.
Working their way through NASCAR 1 and 2. He stays within the slipstream. Going to get a huge run on him. Can he have a go? No, he's going to back out of it. Now he's got traffic up ahead of him. That is Scott Corbin. Corbin's going to dutifully stay low, get out of the way. Now, back before, we learned from some of the what was the prototype drivers, now the LMP2, Taylor, that a lot of times they would duck behind these GT cars because they cut such a huge hole in the air for the prototypes. Is that the case as well for the LMP1s and LMP2s? Are they? Do you tend to see them duck in behind there? That's Sean Reese off, sorry.
Yeah, we see Sean getting back on track. Yeah, a lot of these cars will use that to draft to help punch a hole through the air to try to conserve fuel.
Involved in that was Cy Andra, though, was involved with Sean Reese. As Reese had his corner 1, and then Andra got a little bit of nose on that one.
We'll take a look at the replay. Oof. That looked like a pretty big hit, actually.
There we can see it. There's Andra gets just a little scraping of the nose around the front.
So we come back live. Let's see, what does that do for our LMP1 class then? Andra still sitting in 5th, so didn't lose too much, and he's actually still on top of Tinsley.
Tell you what, we got a very heavy battle between 5 cars for the battle for 3rd position in GTE. Romagnola, Haley, Ellis, Paquin, and Huff all just right there waiting for each one of them to make a mistake, to make a pass. Right now is Roman Yola holding on in the P3 position with that Porsche. He's got 2 more Porsches behind him of Haley and Ellis, followed by Paquin in the Ferrari, and then Ryan Huff finishing it up in the Ford GT. So Roman Yola is really putting on a good show after having a little bit of incidents early on in the first few stages of the race. Alex Ellis also making a good comeback. It looks like Paquin's pulling over, letting the LMP1 cars go by as they make their way down towards the bus stop chicane.
Yeah, just an absolute train of cars. Meanwhile, in the LMP2 class, it's still Gerard leading, but Billy Smith has not dropped off of him, about half a second back, and they have absolutely left Scott McGarvey in the dust. Some bad news. Sounds like Danny Kane is out of this race. Some engine damage after he made contact in the second corner. Gerard just cannot drop Billy Smith, staying all over him like a bad suit. Down into the International Horseshoe. Stays with him for now. Is this some traffic they're coming up to? Yes, it is. Brandon Gracia, Dave Hill, Dean Mole, Kevin Santana, all going to get a bit of a shock as the LMP2 battle for the lead comes up on them. And unfortunately, we'll have to step away from this for a moment. We'll be back after a quick break here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Stick around. Welcome back. Apologies for the little technical issues we were experiencing. But there's been a change in the lead of the slowest class. Alex Simonik has taken over Paul Darling. Boy, Alex, we saw him pick up some pace towards the end of last season in the prototypes and in these GTE cars. He is showing the way. That's the car of Daniel Benefield, our overall leader, that just weaving his way by them down the back stretch, excuse me.
Yeah, Alex made a really good pass going down into turn 1. Paul Darling made sure to give plenty of room, though, so really good clean racing by both drivers. As still a battle for P3 between Roman Yola, Haley, and Ellis. Those 3 cars are lined up nose to tail as they come out of NASCAR 3 and 4. So using the draft to try to maybe save a little fuel, but also keep up pace and try and maybe run down Paul Darling and Alex Simonik.
Now, we didn't see it on screen. We caught maybe just the tail end of it, but when I believe that was DeVries going through Darling and Simonik a moment ago, Darling stayed high, and Simonik went low.
We got a spin in turn 1 between Giuliano Romagnola and Ellis. Got off a little bit. Romagnola still stuck on turn 1. Got some nose damage by the looks of it.
There. Oh, and a little bit, that yellow car, that was Mark Schindel that got a piece of him going by.
Going to try and get it on replay here. Haley is able to continue, but has lost multiple spots. This promotes Ellis up to third.
Yeah, but he's got his hands full with several P1 and P2 drivers are trying to get around him. And it looks like it also brings Ryan Huff into the battle a little bit, bringing him up to P4. So this is really going to shake things up.
Yeah, what happened there was when Ellis had a spin, then he was parked there, and he was waiting, and Schindel came by and just grazed the nose of him. Schindel having a good run. He is racing in fifth in this class.
We talked about the traffic coming into play. It certainly seems to be doing that here as we watch a whole gaggle of drivers weave through the bus stop. Ross Booth leading the way on that one, going by Alex Ellis, Ryan Huff as well. Paquin and Haley still in a tight battle down there for fifth in the GTEs.
Just to follow up on your point there you were making about the traffic, yeah. Bob the Blade really had to live up to his nickname there. As Darling was high, he had to kind of squeeze between them. Slower traffic should stay to the low side here.
Whoa, big incident behind the what we're looking at here. Dave Hill. Did he get Brandon off?
Garcia got into the back of him going into one.
This is Hill that we're seeing in the car with the Blue Jays logo. The red machine is Garcia that you're going to see get into the back of him. Just maybe did not count on the same braking points. Yeah, catches up to him way quicker than he expected.
And that's Kevin O'Keefe that goes really high to get around the outside of him.
Haven't talked about Rutgers Kev a whole lot yet today, but he's holding his own in 8th in that LMP2 class.
We just saw 2.4 hours of him yesterday, wasn't it?
Yes, we did.
Getting our fellow Rutgers Kev.
You see him working his way onto the backstretch through the bus stop. That car behind him is not for position. That is John Ulmer in the LMP2s who's going to work his way on by. Interesting to see the differences in speed. O'Keefe had to lift a little bit as he was about to get boxed in there by that GTE car of Ryan Huff.
Tell you what, looking at the top three right now in GTE, Alex Ellis set the fastest time out of all of those ones on 141.83, and that's even with having to worry about LMP1 and LMP2 cars trying to get around him. Alex Simonek and Paul Darling ran in the 142 bracket, so Alex Ellis slowly but surely working his way up, slowly reeling these guys in. So we might see ourselves a three-way battle for the position of the lead here momentarily.
So far, still about a 12-second gap between Ellis and Darling. He's got a long way to make up after the incident from before into turn one. Really, Simonek and Darling, the ones in the tightest fight at the top of our GTEs. About a second separating them, but we've seen traffic can change that in a hurry, and they're dealing with it right now as Schindel trying to come up the back of Simonek.
So I have to confess, I had to reboot because of some issues, but did we talk about Jeffrey Ooms is out of the race? Are we aware of this?
I don't think we saw.
I'm not able to rewind because I had to reboot, but Ooms is in the pits.
Yeah, I don't think we've covered that. Go ahead.
Yeah, looking at it, he's still on pit road by the looks of it. Let's see if we can get a little look at his damage scene, if there's how serious it is for Jeffrey Ooms.
We talked about it in the pre-race show. No fast repairs this time, so that'll change stuff up a lot.
And something happening with Roman Yolo. Did he have a spin in the bus stop here?
Sure did. He was trying to make a move on the inside of Jimbo Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer may have distracted them a little bit. Then the car gets loose. And he kind of slaps, as it comes around, he kind of slaps the right side of the car against the wall.
Just a little bit of a tap.
Yep. Looks like a little bit of wing damage to the car, so let's see if he can get back down into pit road and get that car fixed up and back out on track.
Another big name in that GTEs that are having trouble. Ooms and Romagnolo both having trouble. Stephen McGarvey way down the list as well.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, we had... Syandra just gained a place over Daniel Gralti. And I was just about to say Andra was battling with Tinsey before, but that was separated by an incident.
Oh, we got trouble in NASCAR 3 and 4. Alex Simonic's in the wall and trying to avoid...
Barrel rolling.
Pretty much.
Oh, no. That was our GTE leader.
Lap traffic. This one started from Mark Wilson, got together with Jason Lundy. Wilson tries to make a pass on the outside, gets into Lundy, and then they come down into Simonic. This is 3 wide down the main straight. Stay right there. Just back that up. We'll have it. Here we go.
We're not
sure.
watching.
There we go.
Yeah, this is...
There's the contact there, and they come down. They get by clean, and then the barrel roll starts.
We come back live. That is going to promote Darling back into the GTE lead. But in all of that, it was 12 seconds between Ellis and Darling moments ago. It's now down to 10 seconds. So I thought that was... I didn't think that gap would come down when you said that earlier, Taylor, but, I'm starting to rethink that.
Jeffrey Ooms making a stop. I guess he's making his... he's out of the race.
Yeah, Jeffrey Ooms has decided to pull it behind the wall. Too much damage after that incident that happened early in the race between him and his teammate, Alex Simonic. So it looks like both those guys are out of the race after that crazy incidents of dealing with lap traffic and lead lap cars.
Going back up to our overall leader. Last time we checked in, De Vries was within about a second and a half. Well, that's doubled. It's now 3 seconds between himself and Benefield.
Benefield coming in. Oh, no!
Oh, no! Gotta practice those pit entries, and Benefield with a critical error. He gets it turned around, but he comes to a halt. Is he going to have to tow it down the pit lane? He's not moving. That shouldn't be his pit... yes, that could be his pit stall now that I think of it. Because they had rated the LMP ones a little bit weird. I was confused there. And that's probably what spun him now that I think about it, Bill. He suddenly realized my pit stall is not at the front.
And why am I here? Yeah, that's absolutely.
All right, so... that'll bump some of the cars up, but we still have those cars yet to pit. Tinsey up to second, of course. De Vries continues on in first. Back and down in the LMP2s, O'Keefe and Jason Lundy have a little bit of a tussle going. This is for 7th in their class.
Lundy qualified 2 spots ahead of him.
You can disregard the damage that we're seeing on Lundy. That's not actually there. He does have his nose cone.
Benefield is out.
This lap traffic not in a good spot. That's Matt Owens. Eventually gets out of the way for O'Keefe, but somehow manages to hold back Lundy despite losing a little time.
We got a pass for the P3 position between Dean Mall and John Packween. Dean Mall was able to use the draft, get up underneath him through NASCAR 3 and 4, and make a nice clean pass down into turn 1, the hard braking. It looks like Pac-Wing gets a little bit too much brake into it, washes up a little bit, and this might bring in Kevin Santana a little bit and Bradley Haley. So those two drivers who had some incidents early on are now still running really well in the top 5.
Pit lane getting busy. Billy Smith pits from second place in the P2 class. We're past the 1/3 mark here, Joe, so I think we're going to be safe. Make this a 2-stopper from everybody.
Yeah, I think that extra pace lap certainly helped ease that burden on the fastest class.
You know, not only was it 1 lap, but it was also, this is a timed race, so it really bigger than you might even think, you know, because it was, maybe 3 minutes of non-racing.
Gralti and Andra in and out. Now, last I looked, Andra had gotten past Gralti when he made a mistake in turn 1. So not sure how he got back around him. Regardless, Daniel Gralti gets himself on the podium yet again. Not had a whole lot of action within the LMP1 class. They've mostly spread apart from one another. Still waiting on pit stops from De Vries and Tinsley.
The big question is, how much time did Benefield lose with this little pirouette in pit lane? I think he's going to be hard-pressed to get out. Andra Gralti might be able to get him. I got a feeling he's going to cycle out in about 5th.
Yeah, and we're watching the current leader, Jason De Vries. He's going to elect to go around again. And this brings up another point, Bill. The hybrid system's not only complex about finding speed, but saving fuel. I wonder if Benefield was set it up different, and De Vries is just out there basically using his hybrid system to make it go longer.
Yeah, you know, I tried to do some research for this series. It seems like it's half technology, half magic, as far as I can figure out how that thing works. Yeah, maybe he has red ruby slippers or something. He can make it get the better mileage. But De Vries is a cool customer. That's why he is called Deep Freeze.
Exactly. Glad to have him back in the series, that's for sure. It's been a couple of seasons. Of course, I guess he did come back towards the end of last one, didn't he? He was just not in the top class. Yeah.
Not a cup of coffee.
Rosenbaum comes in for his scheduled stop.
Gonna give you the gap from De Vries to Benefield, because remember, Benefield was up front. It was 34 seconds now, is what he's behind.
And look at all the prototype cars that we saw in the pit lane. I guess this is about as far as they can go. Both Tinsley and De Vries, though, are still out there. Doesn't surprise me too much that both De Vries and Tinsley have sussed out how to use this complex car better than others.
As we have one of our front-running GTE cars come down to pit road, Dean Mull coming down to get his car serviced. Had a really good run, pretty much was quiet for the most part in the first half of the few minutes we have been racing, but now has just worked his way up after all the incidents that have happened, and it started getting in the P3, so he's got a good run going on for him tonight.
If we could go to 3rd overall, this is a great battle between Andra and Gralti. Joe, you've been documenting this one. Now Andra's back out in front. Remember, they've been swapping spots, and Gralti's all over the back of them. And sure enough, these guys are ahead of Benefield.
That's right, because they've all three stopped, Benefield, Andra, and Gralti. And yes, that had to have happened recently, that pass that Andra got by, because I was looking at those two not too long ago. Wonder if this is a bit of the slipstream allowing them, because, yeah, Gralti's right on top of him.
Gralti is really working Andra. I would be surprised if Gralti doesn't lead into corner number 1 this time, although he doesn't get a great exit back out onto the banking.
And that shot him in the foot for sure as they go by Bradley Haley. His GTE car stays out of the way.
De Vries and Tinsley have made their stop. De Vries is out about 2 seconds ahead of Tinsley. Actually, Tinsley is closing. Wait a minute here. Let me make sure. Am I looking at a pass? Oh, here they're coming in right now.
Yeah, De Vries is pitting.
He's coming in.
But Tinsley has not pitted.
This is DeVries' second pit stop.
Oh.
This is a stop and go.
Oh, no. Speeding penalty, maybe?
Gotta be.
DeVries, who has been holding second, looks set to inherit the lead, has suddenly found himself losing tons of time. Should be about 15 seconds, I believe, that he should be staying in the stall. Wonder if he's going to top up on fuel while he's doing it. But he's still in there.
Boy, 17 to 18 seconds now.
This is much longer than we expected.
He might be he might be arguing with the iRacing automated officials. I know, Jason.
I don't know how this number 20 does it, Bill. It seems like just when you think people have got him pinned, he somehow manages to put himself in a position to win these races.
Get a lot of help from pit lane. Benefield spins it in pit lane. Tinsley does something. We assume something wrong in pit lane. Or I'm sorry,
DeVries, yeah.
DeVries does. So yeah.
Well, he's back out now, but well down the order. In fact, the last of the LMP1s on the lead lap, Mike Young, is the only other LMP1 still out there. Oh, pardon me. John Ulmer is there too, yeah.
Big names. Ulmer, a lap down. Benefield's had his trouble. DeVries. Andren Gralti now sits second and third.
Which makes
third and second, depending when you look at it.
But that makes this battle all the more important right now. Andra, the car ahead of those two, as we were glancing at Benefield there for a moment. And they are only 4 seconds behind Tinsley. That's not that big of a gap. The traffic could certainly bring that down in a flash.
As we have John Packlin coming in now pit road. He's waiting to get his car finished up with service, trying to get a little bit of damage done, repaired out on the nose of the car. So we're having a really good run tonight as that moves now Bradley Haley up into the third position. And it's still, though, Paul Darling and Alex Ellis leading in your GTE category.
We don't need to go there, but I just want to talk about car number 901. This is Billy Smith II. Remember, Billy Smith was racing in second behind Jason Girard for much of the early part in the P2 class. He's now way down in fourth position. And why is this? Well, looking at his pit stop time, so it's about 15 seconds longer than the rest of the guys. So I got a hunch. Maybe he picked up a speeding penalty as well.
We're looking at Billy Smith right now sitting in that P5 spot. Yet more traffic to work around. Almost to the halfway mark of this race now.
He's only about a second back, and he'll be up on Ross Booth.
Got some development going on now. Paul Darling, our GTE leader, now coming down pit road to get his first pit stop completed. Let's see if Alex Ellis will follow suit. He's got a few seconds. He's also going to be coming in. So this will be a battle on pit road to see who gets off first. Paul Darling had a little bit of a head start right now as they're finishing up his pit stop. Alex Ellis is only a pit stall behind him, so this will be a race off pit road move.
Haley comes in as well to take his scheduled stop. Boy, these GTE cars have gone a long time.
Well, it's a little bit of an extra time because of that long first lap.
Just shy of being able to go halfway, so
right.
Can't quite make it a one-stopper, unfortunately.
As Paul Darling is going to beat Alex Ellis off pit road. He's still got a really good gap at the moment. Let's see how much longer Alex is going to be on pit road. It looks like they're just finishing up the fueling at the moment. So it looks like he'll be joining the track momentarily as Paul Darling now just starts to pull away now as he goes back down into the International Horseshoe.
Oh, we've got an incident with Sheldon Rosenbaum in the bus stop. He got turned around when cars got stacked up. There was a battle going on between Rosenbaum and O'Keefe. And unfortunately, Giuliano Romagnolo was right behind him. See on the replay here.
Actually, I think it's Cy Andra who really starts this. He goes by and gets in the way, and then O'Keefe has to back off.
O'Keefe got away a little bit lucky. I thought I was watching it happen live on my screen, and I thought for sure that O'Keefe was going to spin it by putting it through the grass, but good job to him to keep that car whole.
Yeah, Andra took a dive down into the bus stop, and then he had to check off, and then Rosenblum had to check up, and Romiolo turned him around.
Remember, Cy was in a battle with Daniel Gralti, but Gralti's been able to stretch away. It's now about 4.5 seconds. Must have been some bad traffic somewhere. Yep. And this is bad news for Cy Andra, because now he's got an Australian with the red mist down chasing him down at a high rate of knots. The number 72 of Daniel Benefield is gaining. Since pit stops are done, first stops are done for all three classes, let's give a top 5 rundown for each of them, starting with our prototypes. Robert Tinsey currently leading the way. Did not expect that based on qualifying, but things have swung his way. Daniel Gralti as well, having a great race, having qualified this one a little farther down, I believe 4th in his class, and now up to 2nd. Cy Andra currently, well, he was in 3rd, but now he's pitted. And Daniel Benefield is bumped up to 3rd, actually. So Cy Andra goes down to 4th, and that might be lower because Jesse Lyon is currently 5th and coming up behind him. Let's jump down to the LMP2s. Bill?
Just to follow up, I'm not sure what that Cy Andra pit stop is all about. That does not seem to be in the scheme of things. We're going to start with Jason Girard, car number 02. He's got a comfortable 15-second lead now that Billy Smith is out of the picture. Talk a little more about him in a minute. Then, 2nd in class, Scott McGarvey. He's got a 3-second gap back to Mark Schindel. But this is where things start to heat up a bit. Schindel racing 3rd in class. He's got 2 seconds back, and look at this. Billy Smith got the pass made on Ross Booth. So Smith, trying to make up for that slow pit stop, races in 4th, trying to pull away from Booth, who's now in 5th.
He's going to pinch him in. As he boxes him out coming towards the bus stop. That's going to lose Booth some time, unfortunately. Let's head down to the GTEs and see what's happening there.
Well, right now it is Paul Darling leading in that red Ferrari, the 155, all by himself at the moment. In the 2nd position, in the number 41, is Ryan Huff, followed by the 79 of Dean Moll. In the 488 Ferrari of John Paquin. And then rounding out your top 5 is Alex Ellis in the Porsche.
There's your top 5 in each of our classes. Now, with all the switching around that we've seen, the unusual extra pit stops in the LMP1s, that has promoted Daniel Benefield back up into 3rd.
Yeah.
Who might still finish on the podium anyways.
Something's fishy with that Cy Andra stop. Maybe he didn't put in enough fuel. There's no reason to come in there. In fact, Andra did he just lose another spot to Lyon? No, I'm sorry. My timing and scoring was updating as they came across the line. So Andra back and forth. How about Jesse Lyon? 4th spot for him.
Yeah,
car number 115. There he is.
So yeah, definitely one to be proud of. Starting to feel a little bit like some of the prototype races, what are now the LMP2s, were in previous seasons in the AMGSC, where isn't necessarily about overall speed, but staying out of trouble.
After Smith got around Booth, he's trying to leave him, and now he's got him by about almost 2 seconds. Smith is really, rather than Smith and Booth, I think it's really going to be Mark Schindel that Billy Smith is coming up on. That gap only about 1 second. That's for 12th overall, 3rd in class. Joe, I can't help myself from doing it. I've been wanting to do it the whole night. Let's talk some hard charger. Jesse Lyon, 52nd to 4th. That's, why that is, right? Because,
yeah, I think.
Okay. Because they started the P1s at the back of the field. So.
And Paquin has really been trying to get himself back into this thing because he's got Alex Ellis in his sights. This is in the GTE class. Number 5 of Ellis, looking like he might lose 4th.
Actually, Alex Ellis was able to make the pass out of 3 and 4 to get by Paquin, and and then may just pull away going down into turn 1, but Paquin, though, is still going to be on his bumper.
We're on board with the Ferrari now. As he works his way through the Western Horseshoe, they're going to have a bit of traffic. Kevin O'Keefe from the LMP2s will be catching them momentarily.
Down into turn 6 they go, into the transition part of the track. Paquin's going to try to look to the inside, not close enough, but this is the time, though, to use the draft as the LMP car of John O'Keefe looks to the outside. LMP might be used as an opportunity for John Paquin to use it as a draft, but the LMP2 car is pulled away. Here we go down towards the bus stop. Paquin still going to use the draft to try to close in. Not going to be close enough to make a pass into the bus stop chicane. Alex Ellis still pulls away down through the bus stop chicane into NASCAR 3 and 4.
Nice run through there as he stretches away. But let's
Here's
go
Mark
up
Schindel.
to Schindel,
On the top side, it's Billy Smith. We talked about it. Smith was running down, gets the pass made going into one. Billy gets it woed up. Smith on the way, charged back up now into third after that long pit stop.
And he's not too far back from Scott McGarvey. It's about a 3.8 second gap. We'll see if he can run him down. But credit to that number 64 of Scott McGarvey. He has drove yet again just kind of a calm race all to himself, looking at a podium. Even if he does get passed by Billy Smith, he'll still be within the top 3. That's unless he brings Mark Schindel along with him. If the 416 can hold on to Smith's draft.
That's the older of the McGarvey brothers, if I remember from last season.
And the one who has not won a championship.
Right.
I'm starting to suspect it's going to be the first time in the game GSC we'll see a pair of brothers, each with a championship, the way that McGarvey's driving right now. He's at least got a shot at it, I'd say.
Yeah, I think the clear favorite in that P2 class is going to be Jason Girard. But yeah, McGarvey getting faster every season. Boy, what a good opportunity for Schindel and Billy Smith and Booth. That's going to be a fun one to watch, that class.
Should be a tight fight to the end. 39 minutes left to go. Getting close to the second pit stop time for the LMP1 cars. And, I just noticed that Benefield has now got the gap down to 3.2 seconds on Gralty.
I'm watching it as well. He is coming fast. And it has not been, even though Gralty, that's John Ulmer, that Gralty just got around, it really hasn't been traffic. Benefield has been fast. Remember, he should be higher if he didn't have a interesting pit entry.
Exactly. And in the last half a lap, that went from 3.2 to 2.5. I think within the next lap, we should see an overtake of some sort between Benefield and Gralty. We ride on board with Daniel. For those who like these LMP1 cars and like the differences between the Audi and the Porsche, some sad news. Every single driver driving the Porsche.
Now, the rules say they can change cars. The penalty's not quite so bad. If you change classes, they'll smack you and they get your firstborn. They don't want you doing that, but you can get around switching cars and it's not too bad. You know, we talked about Gralty and Benefield, that gap closing. Another one is Scott McGarvey, car number 64. This is in the P2, driver in second. We saw Billy Smith get around Ross Booth, get around Mark Schindel. He's now coming on that gap about 2 seconds and closing fast. Smith to McGarvey.
Yeah, very similar for the P2 battles in both LMP1 and LMP2. Just different drivers between them. So we ride on board with Billy Smith on the hunt, on the nose cam.
So we ride on board. Big news of drivers who are big names that are not racing. Jeffrey Ohm's gone. Dennis Seretic is not racing with us.
You know, I noticed something interesting about Benefield's battle with Gralty here. If we look at his gaps, if we watch it here on the oval portion, it seems to start to go back up. I'm wondering if the little bit of damage that he got during his pit entry means he's faster than him in the infield, but hamstringed on the oval.
Yeah, there are no fast repairs. So, but a nose cone, that should be something they should be able to take care of without it being too much damage.
But these cars are so aero-sensitive. It's not even just the nose cone. Maybe there's other bits on the car that he damaged. And boy, that is going to make it a headache trying to pass Daniel then for Daniel to try to pass Daniel. That'll be fun. Benefields needs to be fast on the straightaways because otherwise Gralty will just breeze by.
Oh, here's some big
the action
traffic
in front of them.
Oh my, that was Gralty. That was Romagnolo there and Owens.
Yeah, 4 cars all in a mess, and did
Benefield put the car off on the... Yeah, Benefield going around Romagnolo put the car off on the grass, almost got it sideways.
They did touch, it looked like, on my screen. But Romagnolo kept it out of the barriers. Benefield is on a mission right now.
And now that's Shane Hunter. They're going around, which is more like prey. They get that taken care of. What's interesting in this battle, Joe, is John Ulmer, who's, what, is he a lap down? Yeah.
Yeah. He's just cruising, trying to minimize the damage for this first round and get some points. Oh, and Benefield's in the wall. Benefield's in the wall with Jason Lundy.
Yep.
He tried to make a move into the bus stop. Lundy did not think he was going to be there. Both of them slam into the tires.
I think Benefield thought about it. He got, I'm in too deep, that he tries to back off, but then it's too late. That was, they pay us to have an opinion. That was a bit of a late presentation, if I can put that way.
But,
Jason Lundy.
As aggressive as he was being, Benefield had reason to be. He's trying to play catch-up here.
Yep.
But unfortunately, it sent him in for an early pit stop. And I think he can get to the end, but it's going to be a little tight for the Australian.
Good news for Jesse Lyon, as he's going to move back up into third. He is the tortoise among a bunch of hares out there, man.
It also promotes Cy Andra back up into fourth.
Andra's coming on Lyon, too. He'll be there soon.
And I just got confirmation Romagnolo has taken it behind the wall. His night is done, unfortunately for him, after all of that incidents going on for him tonight.
That side swipe must have just barely clipped his suspension in the wrong way. In the meantime, we might want to go back up to P2 and the LMP2s, because Smith and McGarvey very close together, less than a second apart.
Sounds like a gun company there. Now that's going around the outside. That's Andra. But remember, we talked about that Billy Smith was running him down. Look at Smith as he tries to tuck right back in, trying to get a little bit of toe off of Scott Corbin. And the GTE cars punch a big hole. So Billy Smith goes around that interval now, down to 0.8 of a second.
It's been yo-yoing back and forth. For a while, it was 0.3. The traffic has not been helpful, it seems, to Billy Smith. Emmanuel Ejede just staying low to let these two through as we look back from the gearbox of Scott McGarvey. This is certainly not over. Still plenty of racing. We're only 2/3 of the way through. So Smith is going to have opportunities.
We can stay on this battle. I think our new fan favorite is going to be Dean Moll. Down there in the GTEs, racing in second. That's a surprise for us, huh?
Yeah, he's been quiet throughout most of the race, running towards the back of the pack, but it's just slowly but surely. It's really, you don't have to have the fastest cars in these endurance races. As long as you keep that nose clean and just run your race, focused on the track, you are going to have a really good run, as we see with Dean Moll. Ryan Huff also was having a really good run so far, but just got done with pits.
Smith is going to get this pass made right here. Out of the oval. Boy, a good exit, though, out of there by McGarvey up onto the bank section.
That's Patrick Fleming they're coming up on. He should hopefully just stay low. let these two through. The draft not appearing to be enough.
Boy, it isn't.
I wonder if it's different downforce sets on those cars.
Yeah,
Smith
I think Smith's problem is he's fast in the sections that you can't pass. So you might have to do this in one of the horseshoes.
Following him through NASCAR 3 and 4. Just not gaining on that orange, black, and white machine. Completing yet another lap. Fans of Daniel Benefield, he did come back out. Just wanted to mention that. He's racing once again late onto the brakes.
Oh!
Looking around the outside for Billy Smith. Very good on the brakes, but not good enough. Don't think he's close enough to have a go into the International Horseshoe. The Texan is trying to do all he can, and you can see visually how much closer he is in the infield where that downforce counts. This solidifies it for me that Billy Smith, just for whatever reason, is not faster in a straight line than he'd like to be.
We can stay on this one. I want to tell you, though, that Andra has got to within a second now of Lyon. So there's going to be a pass for that final podium spot pretty soon. Jesse doesn't care. Jesse's is out there racing his race. I don't care if I fall to third, fourth, fifth. Don't worry.
Here we see on screen Andra, having to deal with Santana through there. I don't think it lost him too much, though. So Lyon's going to stay safe for now. Back to the tri-oval.
Billy Smith trying to get the pass made. He's finally there. If we can cut there quickly. He's alongside. I think he's going to get it done. Yep. They are Cialis bathtubs.
If he can just outbrake. Oh, and look at this.
That's not nice.
No, but McGarvey knows what he's doing. Instead of fighting him on track, he's going to take the pit stop and see if he can get a quicker stop to put a gap on his rival. Might be a hard ask. Oh, there was a car stopped on the inside of turn 1. Christopher Sherburne. Christopher Sherburne is pinned to the inside of the pit exit wall. He's waiting and waiting for a gap, and he finally gets one now.
Just a self-spin, and then tip of the hat to the 135 for just staying there.
I will say that that was not necessarily the best place for him to sit, though, because I've come around on cars, and sometimes you can.
If he were to back up, though, I don't know what he could do. He
was kind of between a rock and a hard place, if you will. If he sat there was a chance that he'd have two drivers side by side battling come up on him. But if he moved, there's a good chance he would go into somebody's racing line. So he just was in a risky place in general.
Dean Mole decided to come down pit road to get his second and final stop, so we are now having our second and third place as Alex Ellis now gets back in second, followed by John Paquin in third place, followed by Dave Hill in fourth. Dean Mole's going to probably lose the fifth position to Kevin Santana, so Kevin Santana and Dave Hill. Dave Hill, I know, had a little bit of an incident in that number 13 Ford GT, but still is able to keep the car running a nice smooth race right now. Is going to actually be closing in on John Paquin and maybe take the fight to him in that Ford to the Ferrari. So a battle for third about to be brewing here.
Yep, Dean Mole there we see out on track, the orange and white Ford GT. Go ahead, Bill.
I just got really excited there as Mole was out there because Daniel Benefield is still racing. He went around those guys. Billy Smith was in that as well.
Got a bit of a battle going on between Kundinger and Rosenbaum. This is for 6th and 7th in the LMP2s. It looks like Kundinger is going to come out ahead on that one. They were side by side into turn 1. Rosenbaum not going to let him get away with it. They do have Matt Owens just ahead of them. Going to sneak inside of Owen's GTE car. Oh, a little wide on the exit for Kundinger, but he carries the momentum better. Rosenbaum loses time. Up onto the banking once again. Kundinger looking much more safe now. Just another side note, don't need to go to it, but Mark Wilson took his pit stop. He's been in and out. Kundinger definitely pulling it away from Sheldon Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum, probably the feel-good story of last season, took his one and only win at his home track. A driver that isn't usually in the fight for the top spots, survived the chaos, and took a special one. Oh, and I think Andra just got Lion? Or did that happen a while ago?
No, he'd been working on him.
So move Cy Andra up onto the podium. We're down to 25 minutes left to go.
Yeah. You know, another interesting battle, and this is car number 488. This is John Paquin. He's racing third of the GTEs. He's not able to get away from Dave Hill.
Looking at Paquin's car, he does have a little bit of nose damage, so that might be hindering him a little bit, but David Hill has a really good run coming out of NASCAR 3 and 4. He's going to try to use the draft, looks to the outside, not close enough to make a pass as they head down into turn 1. Paquin's got a nice line going down in there, gets a runoff as they go through the little S-bend of turn 2 and 3 as they head down to the International Horseshoe. Paquin still going to be holding on. Hill got a little bit closer in that time, gets a good run off the International Horseshoe as they head down towards the kink. Hill's going to try to use a little bit of the draft before they head down to the Western Horseshoe. Paquin still holding on strong. That's Hill, looks to the inside. Nope, not close enough. And still Paquin, very good line he's been holding. He's been running really consistently even after the incident he had early on where he got involved with some of the front runners as they head into turn 6 of the transition. Got to be careful going through there. You can easily lose a car and get it really loose, but now this is a time for Hill to use the draft in NASCAR's turn 1 and 2. So this is a really good battle between these for third position.
And while this is happening, just want to report Jesse Lyon has come in for his pit stop. Carter Kundinger as well, both taking their final stop. Oh, really gaining on him. Dave Hill takes the position over John Paquin.
Boom.
Very good pass. That was really good pass by Hill into the bus stop chicane. Bus stop chicane has always been a really good, fun place to make a pass if you are careful enough and if you're really wanting to get that position.
Maybe go back to car number 41, 28th overall, a pair of teammates. This is Ryan Huff and Dean Mole. Now remember, Mole was racing in second before the pit stops. Huff was behind him. Well, they swapped spots.
Well, that will make things interesting when the rest of the field in GTE class comes to pit road. So probably a little bit of strategy for that team. And maybe hopefully when the pit stop cycles continue for the GTE class, which will be hopefully in about a couple of laps now, these drivers will maybe gain a couple of positions. Maybe
I think they will
take the lead.
I don't know if they'll get to Darling, but it's Darling, Ellis, Hill, and Paquin all need to come in for their stops.
We've seen these GTE cars can go for a long time. I'm guessing our leader probably just waited out till he's out of fuel.
And the leader of the P2s have come in for his stop, Jason Gerard. He cycles back into 12th. That gives the overall lead to Ross Booth. Hey, Ross, congratulations.
It's only going to hold it momentarily. Still a number of cars in the P2 class that are needing to come in. Booth, one of them, Rosenbaum, Reese, Hayspec, and David Sockrider. We're watching Booth now, giving him a little bit of screen time with that P1. We should see the P1 show up soon for Booth on the timing and scoring.
the bigger battle, if we can go back off of booth all the way back to car 64. This is Scott McGarvey, because Billy Smith is coming.
And Schindel is with him. This is a three-way battle
you're right.
for third on track at the moment. Oh, and Smith is hungry. He's making deep moves through traffic. Oh, and he goes a little too wide. I'm guessing he's going to get a slowdown penalty from that.
Have to all that work put in. Have to start over again. Sisyphus and high heels, making it harder than it needs to be, Billy. But out front, McGarvey under attack from Schindel. The yellow car is Schindel on the outside. Oh, they've got traffic in the way, though. That's Jimmy Hume.
Jimmy stays out of the way. Mark not going to get a chance this time through. And despite that setback...
Oh, my! Schindel got the car really loose, but he saved it. Sorry, Joe. Thought it was
okay.
coming around.
But Billy Smith, despite his setback, is actually almost recovered, almost right back on these guys again. Of course, he's being interrupted a bit by lap traffic. Cy Andra trying to work past him. Robert Tinsey as well. In fact, that's a battle for position for the lead right now.
It is indeed.
Now, wait a minute. Did something happen to Tinsey? Wasn't he much farther ahead of Andra before?
Yeah, it's by quite a bit. We'll go back. I'll see if I can figure out what happened to Bob the Blade.
Meanwhile, live, is almost getting up against the wall. Cy Andra decides to back out of it for now. They've got traffic all around them. That's Ryan Huff up ahead. Tinsey on the charge, though, absolutely flying out of that chicane. But Andra gaining, using the slipstream, running him down. These two fought hard all season long for the championship, and the lead is going to go back to Cy Andra. Bill, did you figure out what in the world caused him to lose the time?
Pace! I've just watched Andra run him down, unless there was an incident that damaged Bob's car somewhere, but Andra just chased him down. Cy's got it.
Wow.
Pit stops were relatively the same.
That's not what I expected based on the first stint of the race. It seemed like Tinsey had the legs on Cy.
Now, I don't want to get everybody's hopes up for Andra, though, but remember, he took that weird pit stop. I got a hunch Cy has to make one more stop.
And you think that maybe Tinsey's saving a bit of fuel?
No, possibly. Hey, that's pretty smart there, Joe. Possibly Tinsey has to go a little bit slower to make sure he can do it on two stops. Meanwhile, Andra doesn't care. He knows he has to go again. Maybe that's why his pace is up. So, Cy Andra fans, enjoy him out in front while it lasts. It's not going to be for long.
Well, we think maybe. We're not entirely sure. He is definitely got his move on because he's already gapped Tinsey by about a second and a half. I mean, whatever is happening here, Andra has pace and Tinsey does not. That's the one thing we do know. Garvey and Schindel, we were watching that battle for second place in P2 before. Garvey has a little bit of a gap to Schindel for now. And they've dropped Billy Smith yet again. Not sure if he made another error.
He's working his best to get back up there.
And he's going to be just off the podium if they finish where they are. Which will be a little disappointing, I think, for the 901.
Taylor, that Huff and Mole, I guess it's swapped around a few times, huh?
They have been. They've been going back and forth pretty much the whole race or for these last few laps. It's really fun to watch these two teammates battle it out in the 4 GTs. So they've been putting on a really good show. Currently, right now, Huff has the position and is still holding strong. As they go down into the western horseshoe, Mole's able to gain a little bit of time on them and really not able to put enough gap between them as they head down into turn 6. Huff still holding strong, going down as they head into NASCAR turn 1 and 2.
They have about 32 seconds behind Alex Ellis, the driver in second. I don't think they have enough to get up to Darling, but I think this is really Huff and Mole might be looking at the second and third, however those teammates decide to sort it out.
Yeah, definitely indeed. They definitely have a podium finish if things keep running the way they do. We're still waiting to see about Darling and Ellis when they're going to come down a pit road, and it's just a matter of time to when these front four runners are going to come in. As we see Darling going up now, passing the lap traffic of Scott Corbin and Patrick Fleming.
The LMP2 class with the battle between Kundinger and O'Keefe and Rosenbaum looking to heat up a little bit. Gotta imagine that Rutgers Kev getting a little bit tired after a long race last night and another long one today.
Okay, John Paquin made that stop. He came in from third, and sure enough, Huff and Mole are by him in the GTEs.
Still riding on board with O'Keefe. He's in the middle of this sandwich of cars. The 22 of Kundinger ahead of him, the 113 of Rosenbaum behind. Did Ulmer have a problem? Oh no, Ulmer is in the wall out of turn 6. And this looks like driver error to me. It started coming out of the Western Horseshoe. Right here, you're going to see it.
Yeah, this happens for a long time. He's out there exploring the boundaries.
Yeah, he lost the car on the exit, and then when he tried to bring it back, he underestimated the speed he was carrying, and it just nosed into the wall. And Sayandra is in the pits again.
That's what we expected.
Another stop. Maybe that's why Tinsey let him go.
Now he is rolling. Gralty got by him.
But he's still in third. So that is the incredible pace of the number 18. A 3-stop strategy, and he's still going to come out with a podium. Boy, credit to Daniel Gralty. We saw this last year. He sits in second place. He wasn't particularly fast, but boy, he was starting to get good finishes, just being up there and thereabouts. Playing the same strategy again. We should point out too, is that a battle for position behind him? Fleming and Corbin went side by side through the bus stop. And actually, that was a 3-way battle. Because that's Emmanuel Herre moving by him.
Yeah, Emmanuel was able to get by both of those cars after the bus stop chicane. Scott Corbin's been pretty much quiet for most of the race, along with Patrick Fleming, just moving around, hitting their marks for the most part, not making a whole lot of noises watching these 3 cars, but it's still a good battle for these guys going on for them right now. As Shane Hunter is coming off pit road to add another car into this mix for the top, almost inside of the top 30 overall.
Can we quickly go up to 11th? This is Schindel making a move.
An accident on screen. We just saw a car slide off in the International Horseshoe. I'm trying to figure out who that was. That was an LMP2 car. I think that was Gerard, wasn't it?
No,
is that our leader?
Sean Reese.
Oh, you're right, yes. I don't need to go back to it. We saw it live on screen, but yeah, Sean Reese had to take avoiding action. Meanwhile, let's go back to that battle that you were wanting to talk about, Bill.
Well, poor Scott McGarvey. He just got past during that little incident by Schindel. He lost all of momentum, and that let Billy Smith get him as well. So Big Brother back into 4th now in class.
And Billy Smith on the hunt. He could get 2 spots. Schindel not that far ahead of him. That's more of the...
Sheldon Rosenblum, as I speak, puts it in the wall at the bus stop. Fan favorite.
You might need to fast forward, Bill. I see him going around the turn 1 right now. But it does look like he's made some contact with something, because that is not a whole car.
Sheldon.
Got a new P3 and P4 as Mole and Huff were able to get by Dave Hill. As they're now heading down towards the bus stop chicane, they made their pass down into the horseshoe into turn 1. So they are working their way up, and they're going to be catching Alex Ellis probably here in the next few laps. So that early pit stop strategy that both teammates made seems to be working out really good for them right now. So we could be seeing these two finishing in the top 3 before it's all said and done.
Yeah, Hill had to make that second stop. Ellis has a 33-second lead over, well, Huff and Mole, depending on who's deciding to. I guess it's Huff right now.
We got a battle for the top 5 in the LMP1 class. Benefield has run down Jason DeVries, and they were side by side coming into turn 6 a little bit earlier as they go by the car of Hayspec. Both of these drivers having experienced problems. A little wide there for DeVries is going to give Benefield an opportunity. He goes up to the high side. It's the longer way around, but he's got a little bit of momentum. The car starts to stall out, and I think DeVries can cover him off for now.
Both those guys expected to be racing each other. They just didn't think it would be fair. Oh, mercy.
That was Rosenbaum that they split, and now they're coming up on the poor car of Matt Owens. Benefield. Oh, and into the tires goes DeVries. DeVries turned it in too early and sent himself into the barrier. Well, that
Bradley Haley that they were trying to avoid, and Bradley got a piece of DeVries as he was pinned in the wall. That's Haley, the slower car there. There's Haley's up front.
Apologies for misidentifying that earlier. Thought that was Matt Owens in a similar paint scheme, but to borrow a phrase of a famous movie, that escalated quickly. That'll allow Daniel Benefield to continue on in 5th spot.
Our top 2 have now made their pit stop. Paul Darling and Alex Ellis in the GTE class, and here comes Huff and Mole as they're now entering the front straightaway. Both Ellis and Darling are able to get out in front. So let's see. Ellis is now exiting pit road. Still waiting to see where Mole and Huff are. They're just entering turn 1. So Alex Ellis seems like to be able to hold off and still hold on to the P2.
Ellis' pit stop, 10 seconds. Huff and Mole's pit stop, about 16 seconds. That's why Ellis was able to. Yeah, but I don't know about that. Just maybe he ran longer. He doesn't need as much fuel. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. But remember, Mole was in 2nd before the pit stop, so Ellis did a good job.
Boy, things have lived up to the reputation of this series. So much to follow, so much to cover, and you never know where anybody is going to finish, even if you think you can write them off. We ride on board with Mole now.
Joe,
go ahead.
With a 2 pit stop strategy, it really is. You really don't know what's going on until that final pit stop. It's very possible that Ellis may have filled up long on the first time. That's why his second stop could be so short.
This is true, but Mole has been running a quiet and just kind of his own race so far, even though right now he's in a battle with Huff. But certainly Dean has snuck in unsuspected, almost like a mole.
By the looks of it, Paul Darling has pulled out about an 18-second gap away from Alex Ellis. Ellis, though, trying to figure out a way to close down on him, but I don't think it's just going to be too little too late. However, though, he is only 7 seconds ahead of Ryan Huff and Dean Mole. So one small mistake from Alex Ellis, whether it be an issue with leaders coming in and passing him, or just something happening, could prevent and bring in Ryan Huff and Dean Mole into the picture for the second place battle. So still a lot left of racing between these 3.
That was Daniel Gralti we saw going by, the second place car in the LMP1s, and left these two to battle on their own. A little wide there through the Western Horseshoe for Huff.
Yeah, I like how these two teammates are kind of working it out amongst themselves, maybe letting them pass each other a little bit to see how it works out for the draft. I've noticed that quite a lot with these two teammates. They've been drafting with each other, trying to gain some time, and also trying to save a little fuel. So maybe a little bit of strategy with these two also as well on trying to do a little fuel conservation to make it a little bit longer into the race. That's why they pitted so early, possibly.
Stepping away from them for a second, since they don't seem to be battling, let's take a look at second, third, and fourth in LMP2. Schindel, Smith, and McGarvey still in the same position, Bill.
Billy Smith really took a dive down in there. He's making my heart stop how great he is under braking. Billy Smith, the second car in line. He's chasing the yellow car of Schindel. Now remember, they both got around Scott McGarvey. McGarvey didn't give up the ghost. He's going to hang in there with him as well.
Absolutely. I'm kind of surprised that they're stuck where they were when we last left them. I thought for sure that Smith was going to be able to run down Schindel. They are, however, going to put another lap on Sheldon Rosenbaum with his noseless machine. They do have traffic coming up behind this battle. Jesse Lyon still sitting in fourth in the LMP1s. Might make it interesting in a moment.
Good run out of the bus stop. Watch Billy Smith now. But he does not have room. There's the car on the top side. He almost, I don't know, and getting a little bit loose. That was Lyon. Woo, I thought he was going to get into him. Smith is going to get the pass made going into one, I think. Unless Schindel fights back, no. That was more exciting than it needed to be.
Ooh, Schindel tries to go late on the brakes, but has nothing for the powerful Billy Smith, as he is able to finally take that second position with only 4 minutes left on the clock. The question is, can he fend him off? Because we saw it seemed like their pace was incredibly close. I don't expect he's going to drop him.
And then they got another car in the same class as they come up behind Sean Reese.
Always harder to lap a car that's in the same class as you because it tends to run the similar speeds. Can do the same things your car can do. Reese not immediately pulling over so far. They're going to be overtaken by Mike Young, who, just to give Mike Young some credit, he's moved himself up to 7th recently. Poor John Ulmer with his damage, unfortunately, is going slowly and lost that spot. And still we see on screen that Sean Reese is not interested in letting the leaders through.
Billy flashing his lights. I would like by. Reese moves over to the outside.
Yeah, he's had enough of this nonsense. Reese dutifully lets him through. For those not familiar, and is he going to let the others through? No, he's going to slot back in the line. The blue flags that they do get out there are not instructional. They simply are informative. Drivers are not required to pull over and let the leaders by. They simply are not allowed to make it unnecessarily difficult.
I'm sure the drivers appreciate the instructional.
Leif Peterson.
Leif
Peterson was off course in an unusual place. Is his pit limiter stuck on?
Well,
no, I don't think so.
The car came around on him, and then he had trouble getting it back on the grass. It got loose on the inside of the horseshoe, and then he was just in a golf cart.
Huh. Unusual stuff. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get the replay to see what happened to him as we watch Dean Mole sitting in 4th ahead of Ryan Huff now. This is Schindel, who we've been trying to keep half an eye on. Hard to tell which battle is going to start to break out, but we should mention that you can see on screen the gap is widened between Smith Schindel, and McGarvey. Up ahead of this, we haven't really talked about him a whole lot, but Jason Girard leads the way in the 0-2. Pretty much just dealing with traffic on his own. Go ahead.
Looking at Girard there. Between the two battles, Schindel and McGarvey, they're not teammates. Huff and Mole are. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
my two guys may get together. I don't think Mole and Huff are going to have an issue.
Now, with less than a minute to go, I was watching to see Robert Tinsley. I think he's already gotten the white flag. We're doing minute 28s here in these LMP1 cars, and he crossed just around the minute 28 to go, so it was awful close. Boy, what a way to start off the season. Qualifying may have scared him a little bit. Tinsley may have wondered, am I swamped here? Or am I not going to be able to take another championship because of the change in the type of cars? And
Reese just spun in front of Schindel. Remember that battle? We put 21 seconds. We're probably not going to have time to get it. What is amazing is Schindel pushed him out of the way, continues to lead McGarvey. There's Bob the Blade.
We'll have to get it later. Yes, through NASCAR 3 and 4. Time is ticking down. Definitely going to get the checkered flag this time by Robert Tinsley. On to the tri-oval and across the line. Race number 1 of season 7 is going to go to Robert Tinsley in the LMP1s. And I believe is Darling our next one across?
Girard's going into the bus stop.
No, Girard's in the Western Horseshoe. Darling is in the bus stop.
Yep.
Sorry.
Paul Darling coming down to the bus stop chicane for the final time, up into NASCAR 3 and 4, and pretty much just dominated the second 3/4 of the race, putting on an excellent show, just keeping his nose clean, staying out of trouble. Paul Darling coming out of NASCAR 3 and 4 down the front straightaway. Paul Darling will win in the GTE category.
One last car to come across the line. Jason Girard. Also through the banking. Also pretty well clear, although not as much as we've seen with the other classes. Just about a 5.5 second lead over Billy Smith. Even still, there was no one to challenge this driver. Could we finally see him get a championship? Jason Girard takes the win in round 1 in LMP2.
Now, just report that after Schindel had that little contact, he did lose the spot to McGarvey. So it's going to be Smith and McGarvey in the podium. Schindel has to settle for 4th.
That should be most of our field. We're going to take a quick glance at the incident as the fireworks now go off in my ears. Let's see. Fortunately, the crowd a little bit in the way of our cameras. There we go. This isn't. There we go. That's Schindel. So we try to find. There we go. There's the replay. Talk us through this, Bill.
This is after the incident here, and I believe that's Schindel in the yellow car. So the pass has already been made here. So yeah, it was in the horseshoe, but that's okay. So Schindel has to settle for 4th.
Well, let's take it to break then. It's been a bit of a long race. Let's gather ourselves and try to assess what all has happened out on track. But in the meantime, while we step away, you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. And then after that, you definitely want to stick around because we'll give you the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Don't go away. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway. We just watched the opening round here of the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sportscar Challenge. With all the changes that were made, there is somehow still a familiar face up at the top of the order. Robert Tinsley opens up the new LMP1 class in this series with a win. Daniel Gralti, though, follows him home, doing a great run to get himself into second place. And then Cy Andra, what a recovery. 3 pit stops, and he still gets third place. Jesse Lyon, basically the Dory Award of the night with great results, just kept it going, and he finished with 4th. Daniel Benefield up and down the order with lots of action. He gets a top 5 today. Mike Young behind him in 6th position. Then P7 went to Mark Wilson. And poor John Ulmer, the cheese, fell a little bit off the pizza today. He takes an 8th. Bill?
Not the way he wanted to start the season, but here's somebody who is happy with the way his season started. Jason Girard, pretty much wire to wire, lost the lead for pit stops, but a very comfortable race for him. That was not the case for Billy Smith II, who had to work his way through the field maybe more than once. He gets second. Scott McGarvey rounds out the podium. Mark Schindel, he was running as high as second near the end. He has to settle for 4th. A very quiet top 5 for Ross Booth. Back half of your top 10, Carter Kundinger, Kevin O'Keefe, David Sockrider, Sean Reese, who had a spin there at the very end, and Jimmy Hume we saw racing a little bit. Then 3 more drivers, Alan Hasebeck, Chris Pence, and Sheldon Rosenbaum. Taylor?
Well, winning in the GTE class pretty much after the hectic start for the GTEs, Paul Darling was able to pull away and win in GTE category, followed by Alex Ellis in second after a pretty much up and down night for him after his early incidents in the bus stop chicane. Ryan Huff will come home in the 3rd position in GTE category, followed by his teammate Dean Moll. John Paquin had a very interesting night in that Ferrari. He's going to come home in the 26th position overall. Dave Hill, also really good battle with him and John throughout the duration of the race in the 27th overall. Jason DeVries in the 28th position overall, followed by Kevin Santana in 29th. 30th is Stephen McGarvey, followed by Jimbo Pfeiffer, and Emmanuel Igeria coming home in the 32nd position. Joe, what does the rest of the field show?
Scott Corbin comes home in 33rd. Behind him, Patrick Fleming will finish 34th. We're starting to get through the drivers that are lapped down on the class leader. Shane Hunter is going to finish in 35th with Bradley Haley. Not the results we expected from Brad either, getting 36 overall. Robert Sklanka going to be finishing in 37th with Christopher Sherburne in 38th. And now we get to cars that had really big problems. Matt Owens in 39th, D.B. Bowman in 40th, and Leif Peterson in 41st. Bill?
I'm sorry, I forgot that we have so many here. I can wrap these up. 42nd position is going to be, are we down to Jason Lundy? Is that where we are? There we go. Juliano Rolignolo in 43rd position. Brandon Garcia behind him. Alex Simonik, he was expecting to do better. Another big name down without points. Dennis Savretic, another one of those. Mark Kudrowski, Danny Kane, Jeffrey Ooms. He was our champion. He's going to start in the hole, but there's drop races. Dino Topic, the quiet Canadian, down in 50th. Samuel Scott, Paul Lindsay, Chandler Rubik, and the last name we see down there, the Fighting Marine, David Williams.
Well, the name up at the top that we mentioned, Robert Tinsley, is ready to talk to us after he opens up with a win. Robert, we were kind of wondering as we watched the qualifying and the race start to open up, it looked like you didn't really have pace for the leaders, but boy, did things swing your way.
Yeah, it sure did. Going into this race, my plan is just kind of sure and steady and hope people ran into trouble. So it kind of worked out that way, luckily for me.
Were you worried at all about possible wins with the way that qualifying went? I mean, do you think that was representative of what your pace is to those guys normally, or is this track kind of a one-off where you struggle?
It's a mix of both. I've never done a race in the LMP ones before. I just kind of been in practice servers and whatnot, so I didn't know what to expect. Daytona's also never been a great track for me, so kind of a double whammy. But the qualifying pace was close. I mean, I probably had 3 or 4 tenths more in it, but on average, I'd say a few tenths slower per lap than the leaders.
Well, regardless, you did survive everything. We talked about how these opening races tend to be a little bit hectic, so you played the right game. Next round, when we go to Sebring, do you think it'll be a little bit of the same, where there'll still be a lot of guys kind of learning the ropes, or do you think it'll calm down?
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of the same. That was the most intense race I've ever been in. It's just literally a car coming every 3 seconds, and yeah, I'm safe to say I'm really wiped. So
I can see why those cars look like a handful to try and deal with. Well, again, congratulations on opening with a win. Hope to see you in 2 weeks' time down in Florida.
great, thanks a lot, guys.
It's Robert Tinsey, winner here today overall. I believe we've got Jason Gerard, a winner in the LMP2s, with Bill ready to talk to him.
Jason, it's Soup here. Were you surprised to find yourself on the pole? And I don't mean just on the pole of your class, but actually when they're about to start the race, that you had nobody in front of you there for a while.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with the pole. I was actually kind of surprised. It's been a while since I've driven the LMP2. I've been driving GTE cars for a little while and GT3 cars, so this was the first race back. It was nice to get the pole, but seeing how close the times were up front, I know it's definitely going to be a long season, definitely pretty competitive.
Let's go ahead for new viewers to the series, and I have the memory of a goldfish, but I do remember that you were racing in the HPDs seasons ago, correct?
Yeah, I've been racing HPDs for a little while now. I've just been taking a little bit of break from it.
How'd your race go? You were out in front. You really weren't pressured. Traffic, always kind of exciting here with 60 cars in the race.
Yeah, it was a grind fest out there, especially with the LMP1 cars. I don't really have a lot of exposure with LMPs and traffic, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to race this series, get ready for the new endurance series. And yeah, the first exposure to LMP1s in the heat of battle, it was pretty intense. I saw a lot of people get clipped, and a lot of people have some close calls, but those LMP1s, they're quiet. You know, they sneak up right behind you, and before you know it, they're right on top of you. I nearly clipped my own teammate in one case.
But not you, baby. You made it all the way through. Congratulations on the win. Good way to start Season 7.
Thanks, Bill.
Jason Gerard, our winner in LMP2.
Well, we were able to pull over Mr. Paul Darling, our winner in the GTE category. And Paul, I know a little bit earlier today we were trying to get with you to discuss some stuff about the race, and it looks like everything went according to plan for you. You are now our winner here at Daytona. Tell us, how exciting was it for you to handle those first few moments with the leaders early on?
Yeah, that was a surprising race for sure. I expected a few more people up front that were not up front, and things just kind of fell my way with a few incidents, very unexpected for some drivers.
And it was very unexpected. Notice that you had a pretty much smooth race for the most part. Tell me, how did the car feel when you were handling it out there, especially having to deal with those faster LMP1 and P2 cars?
Yeah, with this session in the heat, I was just felt like I was tiptoeing around, just trying to stay with the Bushfink guys. But the LMP1s, I'm very glad I've got some official Le Mans experience in the iRacing official, because the speed differential is just insane, as I'm sure you guys have heard repeatedly. But it's just a lot to keep track of at one time.
It is indeed. All right, here's the final question for you. Do you think you can sweep the 2 rounds here in Florida and maybe bring it home at Sebring, or we just have to wait and see?
That's definitely a wait and see. Here, I thought I'd be fighting for the last spot on the podium. I was very surprised to come up with the win here, so we'll see what happens next week.
All right, well, good luck to you in 2 weeks' time at Sebring International Raceway. Paul Darling, our winner in GTE. Joe?
We've got one last person to talk to. Third place in the LMP1s. Cy Andra somehow managed to do 3 stops and still come out within the top 3. First of all, question, Cy, is what merited the extra stop for you?
Oh, it was just some bad luck in traffic. I think there was a bit of a clump of cars coming onto the banking, and with LMP1s with the big A-pillars and the high fenders, you don't have a lot of situational awareness. So I kind of just held my line, and we got together. Cost me about 6 seconds a lap, so I pitted immediately, and that's probably what you guys saw.
Well, that explains it then. So you still managed to get a good finish, and we saw this in all the classes, that it seemed to be more about just keeping the car together and staying out of other vehicles or tangles that are happening out there. Does this change your approach in the upcoming races to see how this one played out, or are you still kind of staying how you approach this one?
I think the way I approached this one was a good tactic. I think the only reason we got into trouble was because it was a first race sort of deal. Everybody's kind of itching to go, and I think had it been a conventional start for one, and also everybody was more experienced in these cars and with these sort of closing rates, I think it would have been a cleaner race, and I would have had a shot at the win, because I think I was reeling in Tinsey there at the end as well.
Last question before we let you go. We talked to some about the hybrid systems that these LMP1 cars use and how complicated they can be. Was that overwhelming for you to make that switch, or was it relatively easy to try and figure out how to best use it?
Oh, I embraced it. This hybrid thing is completely in my ballpark. I'm an engineering student, so I love messing around with stuff like that. And the only reason I think I wasn't in tip-top shape for this race was because I have finals this week, and I made the last-minute switch from the Audi to the Porsche LMP1 just because of competitive reasons and stuff like that. So even with only like an hour or two to set up the car, if I have the chance at a podium, I like my chances for the rest of the season.
All right. Well, sounds good. You challenged for the championship last season. Hopefully we'll see more of that this season. Congratulations on a podium, and hope to see you at Sebring.
I'll see you guys there.
With that, that's going to close up our interviews for today and our show. And before we go, we want to thank a few people. Of course, a big thank you to the sponsor that has been the sponsor of this series ever since it started, the Autobahn Motorcar Group. Also, thank you to John Ulmer and his team of helpers that help organize this series and put the race on every other week. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts that are listed on your screen. Additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Bill, Taylor, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget, head on over to our YouTube page. There's a big red button there that says subscribe. If you click that, you won't miss a moment here on the GSRC. We are staying here in Florida, but going just a little bit over to Sebring. That'll be Monday, August 20th at 9:15 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.